Welcome back to our Sextup Map series, where we look at how teams played in the last IPL and what players they've brought in to help with that, or in some cases, not at all. We're in the middle of the road teams now. Shall we have a look at the Delhi Capitals and the Punjab Kings? Yes, we shall, because they're the ones I've clicked on. So let's start with the Kings. You can see, again, this is a very interesting shape that they've managed to create here, which would make sense as we all watched them, and they certainly played cricket in a way that looked like an interesting shape. They managed to score the second most runs in the last IPL, but they ended up with a 7-7 record, and I don't think they ever really flirted with the finals, but they were very fun at times. Never more so than at the top, where they didn't lose many wickets, and they scored incredibly quick. This is noticeable, isn't it, how much they dominated in the power play. The problem, of course, is they didn't really follow that up at all. Their runs per over in the middle is just bang on average, but they're losing wickets to be able to do that. They had Rajapaksa, Livingston and Dhawan, but Bairstow and Agarwal seemed to be dismissed almost every time they got to the middle overs, and that slowed them down a lot. Agarwal is obviously gone now, and while he had a bad year, it would appear like they didn't replace him, and so they were kind of left with that hole. And losing all these wickets here with no real all-rounders and a paper-thin tail really got them into a hole when it came to the death. And to help fix the all-rounder and probably some batting at the death, they have added Sam Curran, the most expensive publicly bought player in the IPL. His batting has been developing for a while, and for ages he's been asking about a hire for his local Surrey, and finally there seems to be some development from him that has turned him from handy to helpful. The problem here might be that he needs to bat as high as 6, and in fact, to get the most out of him, you might even want him to bat further up the order at times. And the problem with that is that he won't be batting at 7, and he won't be able to fix this as much. Sam Curran is a very interesting player at the moment. He was unwanted by Chennai, and is suddenly the most in-demand player at this auction. And while he'll be a boost on last year, it is still another overseas player they need to fit into their 11, and their batting will probably still fall off a cliff. Meaning if they want to keep batting as fast as they did last season, there could be a few more games where they just sort of splutter out towards the end. And just to talk about the new players in general of Curran and Raza, they're both probably best suited to being late order batters. Raza probably at number 5 or 6, and Curran at number 6 or number 7. But to have them both in the side to shore up that position, it means there's only 2 other overseas players there. Now, if Rabada is one of them, that means you can only pick one out of Livingston and Bairstow. And I haven't even mentioned Rajapaksa at all. It could be a very different looking 11 because of all that. But if you do have a look at the bowling, having all those specialist bowlers certainly helped them a lot. You could see that Rabada took a lot of wickets in the power play. However, weirdly enough, they still went for above average when it comes to runs. Traditionally, I would have thought, well, Sam Curran could help here, but he's now a death bowler, right? And probably won't bowl that much more in the power play. But the top really isn't their problem. You can see here that their middle over bowling is really where the issues start to come in. Last year, Livingston bowled a lot, and he wasn't tight or taking wickets. Now, Sikandar Raza could help with that. But if he bowls specifically, if Livingston is in the side, how do you fit both of their overs in? They're both going to want to bowl at the same point in the game. And while I think that Raza probably deserves to get a go in the IPL, and he's never played better cricket than he is right now, it's also worth saying that he's a really big question mark. I'm not sure if his batting will hold up at this level, although that's certainly his strongest suit. But if his batting holds up even at all, like an average of 20 with a strike rate of 145, it's his bowling that could be really interesting here. Because if players continue to struggle with his knuckleball, he will take wickets in the middle for them. However, you need to know the full story of Sikandar Raza. Before this year, he was a part-timer. And even when you look at the start of 2022, a lot of those early games in the year, he wasn't bowling at all. But luckily for him, he played a lot of T20 cricket this year, 41 matches in total, and he had plenty of time to catch up and develop on his bowling. Altogether, he went at less than 7 runs and over and averaged 22. You could see how that would help the Kings without any problem at all. However, at the Lankan Premier League, he got some major tap. He started getting hit everywhere. It seems like the majority of his success with the ball is when teams haven't seen him bowl that much. That's not going to be the case in the IPL. Teams have already played against him in the World Cup. There's a lot more video of his new bowling action available now. It will be really interesting to see if that holds up. And if it doesn't, the other options in the middle are Chahar, who really is the sort of bowler who would be best paired with a strike spinner, and Harpreet Brar, who actually did strike quite well a couple of years ago, but hasn't looked like that bowler since. So that's explained in the middle, but if we go on to the death, you'll see that they're far better there. That's of course because they have Arshdeep and Rabada, who bowled a huge amount of overs in that period of the game for them. Adding Sam Curran to that seems like you would strengthen it even more. I don't know if you can ever guarantee success at the death, But based on the strength of these three bowlers, you'd have to say that they're doing pretty well. There is perhaps a concern that Sam Curran and Arshdeep are too similar, and I don't just mean because they're left-armers, but also because neither of them are particularly quick. But I think that they bowl in a different enough way that that shouldn't be a problem, and it would be very unfair to think that Sam Curran would suddenly fix, like, kind of all of this. But you can see how he might be able to bat in the middle and continue with this very good strike rate, which obviously should then carry on and hopefully help them at the death. He might chip in for the odd wickets in the power play, and he can shore up what is their strength in death bowling. And I suppose if you're going to spend that much money on a player, you kind of want him to fix, like, everything that's wrong with your team. It's also a really interesting thought experiment of this player who's just recently transformed into this particular player. Is he worth 2 wins a season to this team? Because if he is, and everything else kind of holds firm, he kind of puts them in finals contention. It just feels like to me that as good as he is and as many problems as he fixes, there's still quite a few other problems right in this team. So moving on from the Kings, we'll go to the Delhi Capitals, who, again, you could see that there's something very strange going on here. But let's put it on the big board, shall we? So this is a team that went pretty hard after Cameron Green. I suppose that doesn't really narrow it down. But when you do look at this, I do wonder where he was going to bat. Certainly at the top, there weren't really that many issues when it came to Delhi. Shaw and Warner is a near ideal opening partnership, I would have thought. One bats long, one bats fast, and then at first drop they have Mitchell Marsh, who again seems to fit the way that they play. And I did feel like watching what they did at the auction, at times it did feel a little bit confusing. Like, if this is their strength at the top, and they clearly weren't as good in the middle, although the economy's fine, but the average obviously not as much. And yet they went after Phil Salt and Riley Rousseau, who again are both top order players. I mean, I think Salt can probably play anywhere, but his career has basically been opening or a little bit at 3. Maybe they are planning for a shake-up or planning for life after Warner, but I don't get it. In fact, of all the teams who don't need Riley Rousseau, I would put them fairly high up on the list. And there's a few other things that probably just should have got him. But thinking back to Green, maybe it wasn't the top order thing at all. Maybe they just wanted the best all-rounder available to them. But they do already have Mitchell Marsh and Rodman Powell. So how many all-rounders who can't really bowl their full quota of right-arm seam do they need in one side? But if you do look at their middle and death batting, there's probably no great death hitting option here. And I think they wanted a backup keeper option, and also Rousseau has been so good against the spin. But when you look at their team of recent times, they do seem very dependent on Rodman and Akshar, and they've always just felt like a player short when it comes to that. And there's absolutely no way they're ever going to be able to get this happening again. And the interesting thing, of course, was, even though they didn't lose any wickets at the death, they didn't actually score that much quicker than anyone else does. But all things considered, they scored quicker in all 3 different areas, and that's about all you can ask for. So maybe they didn't think they needed to make that many changes. Where they obviously have an issue here is taking wickets in the power play. Again, it didn't quite affect them in economy, but you could see that that is the worst part of their bowling. And realistically, for the rest of the game, they're bang average. If they could get a few more wickets here, they might be able to shake the boat around the rest of the game. And I don't think you're going to get away with this again, of not taking any wickets, but managing a good economy at the top. Khalil Ahmed was outstanding last time, and they have another couple of decent local options as well. But I also like the fact that they brought in Ishant Sharma and perhaps Mukesh Kumar. That's given them even more local options when it comes to fast bowling. And the one thing that they probably can't control is what sort of form Anrik Nortje is in, and I'd say he's in better form than he was last year in the IPL. In the middle, they're bang on ordinary at the moment, but they do have Kuldeep and Akshar there. Akshar's not going to take a lot of wickets, but he is going to be hard to hit at times. And Kuldeep should take a lot of wickets, but occasionally we go for more runs. Kuldeep looks like he's bowling even better to me than he was last year, so they might be able to at least take a couple of extra wickets in this section. At the death, they're holding firm, and obviously they have the fizz, so they probably has less concerns than everyone else. I'm not quite sure I buy their death bowling numbers overall, but they've done fine, and if they can get anywhere near that again, it will be considered a win. The one thing I want to point out here is just this overall shape. They are above average when it comes to scoring in the power play, in the middle, and also in the death. They're better than average when it comes to bowling in the power play, and they hold firm in every other point. They really should have got more wins last year. And I did have a brief look at their record. It wasn't like they lost that many close games, but all in all, I could see why they didn't want to make that many changes. They got rid of Shardul, which I think makes sense. He didn't really fit their side. And they've got in some interesting overseas batting and really shored up their local seam bowling. Green was obviously their white whale, but you could see why they would have actually looked at this season and been like, we were doing okay here. We just need to do a couple of things around the edges. If that's all that they needed to do, that's kind of what they did. Compared to most teams, there just doesn't seem to be that many holes in this lineup. Thanks again for watching the video. Remember, like, subscribe, comment, press the bell icon, do all those sorts of things. Tell your mum. We will be back for the next episode, which will be the Super Giants and RCB.